Same to you, man. I ain't seen y'all since New Year. Where y'all been? Where you been? Where y'all been? What's your name? Stephanie, how long you been here? About a month and a half. Yeah, shoot. Oh, you came from East? Okay. Yeah. This is her first time down here? Down here? Yeah. When? Tuesday. Okay. Next Tuesday. Okay. But this message is for you. Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's good. Yeah. That ain't a bad place to be, you know, to continue on what we doing. You know what I'm saying? We need some confirmation sometimes. You know what I mean? And we can't get it everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Huh? Oh yeah, yeah. I understand. You know, but we got to put ourselves in position, you know, to get there. You know, yeah, that's important. Thank you. They were very colorful. Yeah, I can wear them with two or three different colors. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, yeah. Love those. I can wear them with almost anything. My blue jeans, my red jacket, my green shirt, my green hoodie. Okay. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. My name is Marshall Numbernati. Let's get it started. Let's get it started. Uh, what we want to talk about today? Uh, we want to talk about building something, building something, building a foundation. You know, and that foundation starts with us. We want to talk about building ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Building ourselves up. You know, everywhere that I go, I always hear uh, all knowledge starts with what? Y'all know it. Knowledge of self. You know yourself. You got to know yourself. You know, and I mean, we can come in a place like this, and man, we can sit here and just assume that we know ourselves. You know, and from my own personal experience, that's incorrect. I didn't know who I was. When I first got here, I didn't even know how to feel. You know, I didn't know how to be grateful. Didn't know what gratitude was all about. You know, only thing I really knew is what was anger. You know, what anger was all about. You know, I had that part, you know, and like we said, man, you know, we go to a program like McShin and they got the feeling shot on the wall. And I'm telling you, it was some stuff up there that I couldn't relate to it. I couldn't relate to it, you know? And, you know, the more I started to read that stuff and learn and start to identify, you know, it made me a different person because I could identify what they say about this right here, right? The feelings disease. We chasing a feeling all the time. We want to feel better, you know? So we chase some shit, man. We chase it down in the hole, you know, and get deeper and deeper and deeper in the hole. then we really don't know how we feel. You know, we angry all the time for no apparent reason. And who we angry at? We angry at other people. And most of us, when we get here, we find out that, man, we should be angry at ourselves. We should be angry at ourselves, you know, for not knowing who and what we are. I know a little bit about me today. I know certain situations gonna make me feel a certain way. And so what I try to do, not put myself in those situations. You know, don't do it. Don't put yourself in those situations. You know, immediately when I think about that, man, I always think about relationships. You know, because for me, when I got here, man, that was like a playground, you know, a playground. Yeah, and I was like, man, my thinking was, man, that's a bad idea to mix the men and the women together. You know, women got their eye on a man, man got their eye on a woman, you know. Didn't know what that was all about. In my learning cycle, I understood why they got private schools, all boys schools, all girls schools. My concept was totally screwed up because somebody understood that at some point, little girls and little boys were a distraction for each other. You know? And I mean, that carry on, man, that carries on for a long time. You know? Become a distraction. You can't focus on who you are because you got to focus on who your girl is. You know what I'm saying? What she doing. You can't focus on what you're doing because you got to focus on what she's doing. You know? And what I mean about that being a problem, I spoke to the young lady today, and when we come in here, for all of us, man, me on a daily basis, when I come in here, I get little nuggets about life all the time. All the time. I get little nuggets about life. You know, they said the first year don't make any major decisions. Don't get in any kind of relationship and all of that. You know what I mean? Yo, you know. Now what goes along with that? Yeah. Yeah. You know, what goes along with that when we come in here and we get these little nuggets about life, you know, how to stay clean, you know, what goes along with that is we got to learn how to apply that. We got to learn how to apply that. You know, I mean, it's different variations, man, of how we get this thing. You know, very different variations of how we get it. I remember somebody telling me years ago, old time, you know, whenever we introduce ourselves to a principle, before we went to a principle number 2, you learn how to apply principle number 1 in your life. You know, because you got to learn how to live it. You got to learn how to live it. If you just know it here and it ain't here, it ain't gonna do no good. You know, you got to have this stuff right here, man. You know, that stuff takes some practice. You know, you got to rehearse it. I'm telling you, an addict texted me yesterday and they told me, said, I'm bored. You know, and that's famous for what we hear a lot of times early on. I'm bored. I said, well, you got to learn how to not be bored. You got to learn how to be excited, and you got to learn how to deal with boredom. I told him, I said, go pick up a book. Go get you a self-help book. You know what I'm saying? Go get something different from what you have been doing all your life. You know, because I know how you dealt with boredom. This individual had just came out of jail. And how many times have I said this? So I get bored, so my choice is to go do something stupid and go back to jail again. And then you get in jail and you kicking yourself with your nice shoes in the butt. You know? Because you done did something stupid and you back in jail. Now what's more boring than to be here for 6 months to 12 months? You know what I'm saying? You come here and you manage the symptoms of your disease while you here, but you can't do it while you on the street. And you be wondering about that because you're not applying the little nuggets of life that you hear. You know? So think about that, man. Apply some of this stuff that these people pass on to you. Learn how to apply it. Because if you ain't living it, I'm telling you, you know, you run into an old friend that you know using, and they be like, yo, come on. Come on, go with me. If you haven't learned how to say no, hey, you know, that's the time to tell a lie. You know what I'm saying? Dude, I got something to do. You know what I mean? Because we get that thing twisted up, man, about honesty. You know what I'm saying? About not to lie. Be honest about not wanting to use, you know? And when I say about knowing yourself, this thing is deep, man. This thing is a conviction. You know what I'm saying? With me and myself. You know? Me, John, a couple other people been around here, man, for 20 years, and you still see them at the meetings. Why? Because we still applying this stuff, man. Life does not stop. Whether you continue to use or whether you stay clean, life does not stop. Stuff happens all the time. You know, man, that's why we need old timers. It's a vicious circle. Some of the stuff that you dealt with, feelings, emotions, issues, your first 5 years, in your 20 year, 25 years, you may deal with them again. And then when you reach 41, like John got, you might deal with them a second time. You know? And you be wondering where it came from. And you know what? You got to learn how to apply it. Got to learn how to apply it. I heard somebody say this years ago. Old timers come in that don't go to a lot of meetings like they used to. Life has changed for them. They become disconnected. How do you connect with the fellowship again? They give you the same suggestion they gave a newcomer. 90 means 90 days. Get a home group. Get a sponsor. And you've been here 20, 25 years. Just to give you an idea how it is full circle, man. Full circle. The things I tell y'all to do, I do it myself. Picking up a book, reading all the time about recovery. All the time about it. And then after I read it, I learn to apply it. Man, one of the biggest things I got in there, man, is how to mind my own business. Come on now. Hey, don't bring that gossip to me. I don't want to hear it. Because if I hear it, I might take it somewhere. So I don't even want to hear it, you know? But it's things like that, man, things like that that we need to learn to do, to apply to us, to our recovery, to apply to the knowledge of ourselves. And I tell you this last thing before I introduce my main man. Why do we want to know who ourselves are? Why do we want to know something about ourselves? Because in this thing, in this journey, on this journey, you got to lead yourself. You got to lead yourself. So you need to know yourself. I just told you that earlier. If you know when you put yourself in certain situations, how it's going to make you feel, it's going to make you forget everything that you have learned in the last year. I lead myself better today than I did when I got here. Certain things, like, you know, you talking about being bored, man, I'm happy staying at home on a cold night like it was last Tuesday, or Tuesday before that when I didn't come. You know what I mean? You know? I'm happy that, you know what I'm saying? I understand what they said, man. Like, man, your home is your castle, man. You know what I'm saying? Someplace you love living, you know what I'm saying? And that works, man. The meaning of it has really blown me away from day one to day 35, going on 36. You know what I mean? But if you need help in trying to know something about yourself, programs, resources are here, you know? Take advantage of that stuff, man. I still love this guy here, man. John and Carol had the vision. That's still like, I'm still wrapping my mind around that. You know what I'm saying? To do this for y'all. They opened this thing up, man, so it's so many different variations of the program that they started that's surfacing there. They the ones started it. Man, I hooked my wagon to his long time ago. John and Ken was coming down to Richmond City Jail. And man, we still going to jail.
Can't get rid of it. Still going to jail together, man. Give Marshall a hand, man.
Thank you. We still going to jail.
You know, I mentioned y'all before, and it weighs heavy on my mind too, because it's kind of like, man, this is an incredible journey. But if you think about it, 1982, August, for whatever reason, I was chosen to go to rehab. I've been clean ever since. Here I am, coming up on 42 years clean. I've lived an entire lifetime almost in recovery. And it's like, I honestly believe I was chosen for this lifestyle. When I met Marshall 34 years ago, I believe he was chosen for this lifestyle. And if we're chosen, then the people we're speaking to are chosen. I believe Sheriff Gregory was chosen to open these doors up to me and Marshall and the team over at McShin. And, anytime you get the sense you might be chosen, you don't want to waste that sense. Now don't worry about trying to make sense out of that sense, because it don't make no sense sometimes. Why am I chosen to, who gets clean at 23 and goes that long? And I ain't saying I'm out of the woods. I'm convinced I got a relapse in me. I just ain't trying to go there because I ain't sure I got a recovery left. But it was a point in my life along this journey. I was in the lowest point of my life, massive pain, just floundering a little bit. And I met another person in a similar situation, in a lot of pain, floundering. And, we've been married 25 years now. And my father always said we were made for each other because we really helped each other out at a down and out time in our lives. And I'm an old school addict. Two sickies don't make a well eat, all right? So I ain't saying we're well by any stretch of the imagination. But you think about this, two people met at low points in their life, and somehow they worked through, but yet together we founded the McShin Foundation. And McShin, for better or worse, has impacted hundreds of thousands of lives nationwide. And I'm not bragging. I'm a very humble person. I don't want that to come across as arrogant. But we all chosen for a reason. We don't know what the journey is going to exactly look like. But the point is, it's our responsibility to keep suiting up, showing up, preferably clean, and then more gets revealed, okay? Now, some of y'all heard the speaker. She was here a year ago, Valentine's Day. That was date night that night, I believe. And she come back tonight. She's going to share with us tonight. Very powerful woman in recovery, wisest woman I ever ran across, one of the smartest women I ever run across. I mean, sometimes I Google what she's telling me just to make sure it's true, and it is. So I'm blessed and fortunate in many ways, and I know it. Now, I've heard Carol, my wife, speak daily for probably 28, 29 years, however long we've been together. And I never get tired of listening to her. Now, she might think I do sometimes at the house, but I really don't. I'm just trying to get the hell out of there, you know what I mean? But I never get tired of hearing her share the recovery message, the recovery way. So you're in for a treat tonight. Let's give a warm welcome to Carol. And she brought books. This is not a good sign. Oh, they gave you a mess. Oh, that came off.
Hook me up, literally.
Yeah, I'm gonna hook you up. But this is really for the YouTube, Facebook folks. So that should work.
Okay, perfect.
Just don't
Hey
rip
everybody,
it out.
I'm an addict. My name's Carol.
Hey, Carol. Yeah, we're gonna do that. I'm way ahead of you. I should have done that the first time. Delay game, no foul. First down.
There we go.
All right.
The clip.
Well, that goes to this one.
Yep.
I keep telling
So,
you buy new stuff.
I'm an addict. My name is Carol. Hey everybody. And I was praying this morning. And John didn't talk to me until after I had prayed about coming here tonight. But one of the things that came to me in my prayer this morning, because I always try to figure out one or two things that I'm grateful for every day, and I try to make them different, right? And I start my day off like that and some literature that I try to read. And it came to me this morning that one of the things that I am most grateful for in my recovery, it's free. Nobody else has to give it to you. Nobody can take it away from you, only you. And it is one of the things that, as I think about it, have made my life worth living again. And I'll tell you some of my story. I'm going to wrap it in there, but I'm going to tell you right up front what the theme of my talk is tonight. It's about how to get and maintain dignity and self-respect. You know, a lot of times we think we know what things mean, right? Oh yeah, I know what that means. But I just wrote down a couple of the definitions out of the dictionary. Y'all pass it around on one side and you pass it around on this side. And it's definitions of what dignity means and what self-respect means. Obviously, self-respect seems pretty self-explanatory, but the reason why I'm going to talk about that is because it allowed me, once I began to have some self-respect in recovery, I could take advantage of everything that life has to offer again, because I had my head held up. I wasn't looking down at my feet. I wasn't thinking about what lie I needed to tell to get what I wanted next. And I had this lack of a relationship with what the truth was in my life. And that started from when I was this big. I just always thought that I had to beef up who and what I was in order to get you to like me. And so, I mean, even as a little kid, I would like tell whoppers in the hopes that, you thought that was some fantastic story I was telling. I would, if you were playing a game with me and I'm 5 years old and you go run to the bathroom, I'm going to move the pieces while you're gone, right? So that I can win. I just was a little liar and a little cheat. And I brought that in to me already as I was using. And, like a lot of people in here, I'm not going to focus on this too much, but, I was raised with everything a kid could need except for love. And people in my house were busy. They were busy. They were worrying about the other addicts in the house and what was going on with them. And my mother had me when she was almost 40 years old. I didn't expect to have another kid at this age, and she would routinely tell me stuff like that. And my father was an active addict, and he also practiced something that had been going on in his family for generations, which was incest. And my sister and I, more me, but we both got the receiving end of that kind of behavior. And it begins this It was from 6 to 11 with me. And it began this whole lifestyle of secret keeping and sneakiness. And I felt from that secret, both physically and mentally dirty. I knew I couldn't tell anybody because he said, if you tell anybody, you're going to get put in foster care and I'm going to have to leave the family. And, all these scary stories and stuff. And that this is how a father shows their daughter how they love them and all that. So I'm like walking around with a little rock in my back, right? Like this was a traumatic thing for me. And most of you have heard about what happens with early childhood trauma. It can be a factor on why a lot of us use drugs and stay messed up on drugs. But what I learned was I'm not just an incest survivor. I have thrived in spite of that. I mean, I haven't just done okay. I have literally thrived in my life. And I give a lot of the credit to that, obviously, for my recovery, having a higher power, having connections with people who are real. And, as I was listening to Marshall, it's kind of funny, me coming behind Marshall, me being the main one and coming behind Marshall and John, because they really are funnier and like can command the room. And I am more of a spiritual type of speaker and a this type of speaker. Get in that book. And if you have not gotten in this book, don't cheat yourself. You got all this time when you're here. I don't know, some of y'all may have jobs or a little something cooking, but for the most part, you got plenty of time to read. And there's going to be times in your life where that isn't going to be the case. You're going to have little ones snipping at you. You're going to have the boss yelling at you. Recovery will give you a great lifestyle back, so you're busy doing fun things too. And you're not going to be able to just sit down and inhale a whole book like you can now. And I wanted to read a few of the things about what our text says about dignity and self-respect, and so that you can get on it and read it in here. And I'm reading out of our basic text. And it says, petty frustrations, and I'm reading on page 16 out of the basic text. Petty frustrations, minor setbacks, and loneliness often make us feel that we are not getting any better, and it means even if you're staying clean. But you just have this feeling, I still feel stuck, man. Like I'm and when you're in here, you don't have time to go do a bunch of activities that make you feel better about yourself, but you can be the best person you can be while you are here. Nothing's stopping you from doing that. We find that we suffer from a disease, not a moral dilemma. And I hope most of you know that by now, that this is an illness. This is a brain disease. It doesn't mean you're, spawn of Satan. It doesn't mean that you're, have a moral failing or that you've got flawed character. No, you have the disease of addiction. But once we learn about that, we do have a responsibility to do what it takes and to recover from it. And I think for most of us, for me, I have, 26 years clean, and I still have to go to meetings routinely. I still am sponsored, and I sponsor a lot of people, and sponsorship has been an incredible gift to me and for me. And I have to do things that keep me connected to recovery and keep me building my self-respect. Because at the end of the day, you're the one that's got to look yourself in the mirror, not the judge, not your mama, not your lover. You have to look yourself in the mirror and find out what gives you self-respect. And it says, we were critically ill, not hopelessly bad. Our disease can only be arrested through abstinence. Today, we experience a full range of feelings. Before coming into the fellowship, we either felt elated or depressed. Our negative sense of self has been replaced by a positive concern for others. And you may think to yourself, Carol, why are you stressing and emphasizing this, helping others? And yet you're talking about how you get self-respect in yourself. For this addict, one of the ways early on, when I was still covered up in shame about all the things I had done while actively using or not done, one of the ways that helped me get self-respect and self-esteem and self-worth was by helping the next addict. And, you know, it says in our literature that an addict, you know, with 2 days clean can help an addict with 1 day clean. And no truer words were ever spoken or written. That is so true. You have today exactly what you need to do to save a life. And if you don't think you do, you are, I'm just telling you right now, let me reset your head, because any person can help another person and you can save their life. And it gives you a feeling of purpose and self-worth and meaning to your life. Because Marshall's right, a lot of people use over boredom. There's no reason to be bored. We got a town and state full of people dropping dead from fentanyl. I don't need to tell you all that. So literally that one word that you could say to them about fentanyl could save their life, literally. Today, we experience a full range of feelings. Our negative sense of self has been replaced by positive concern for others. Answers are provided and problems are resolved. It is a great gift to feel human again. Who in here has ever felt like they were part of the animal kingdom and not the human kingdom? Anybody else besides me? I mean, man, I was groveling. I had everything but a tail. I mean, I just, you know, back in my day, you know, people would crawl along the floor looking for rocks, hide in closets, live in your closet because of paranoia, weirdo behavior. I had people that would say, shh, everybody be quiet. Like even in a crack house or a dope house, like we used to call them, everybody would like, okay, turn off the lights. I could hear her outside trying to come in. I mean, even dope fiends did not want me around. Oh God, she'll be knocking on this door all night long if we answer at once. Like you gotta, this woman she's a tweaker. She's fucking weird. Oh, excuse my friend. She's weird. And we want nothing to do with her. Her money's not good up in this house because she's so strange. So that was kind of the place that my addiction had taken me. Even other addicts wanted nothing to do with me, even with a pocket full of money. And that's saying something. So the program convinced us that we needed to change ourselves instead of trying to change the people and situations around us. We need to change us. It's not them. It's not her. It's not him. We have a problem between our two ears right here, and it's up to us to work on that. And again, you've got time to think this through right now, and I hope you'll take advantage of this. What the hell got me up in this place? How did I land here? You better start running that through your head and start giving yourself some answers, because if you don't, you are doomed to repeat it. So begin to understand what kind of lifestyle you were leading, what kind of actions were you taking or not taking that got you here, and then begin to ask for help or do the things that you need to do to have a better life. Let's see what else our literature has to say about dignity and self-worth. The lessons we learn in our recovery are sometimes bitter and painful, and they are. John talked about how he and I met at a time when we were both having troubles, down and out. By helping others, we find the reward of self-respect as we are able to share these lessons with other members of Narcotics Anonymous. We cannot deny other addicts their pain, okay? Sometimes people need to feel the consequences of what their addictive behaviors have delivered them. And you don't want to rob them of that because they need to feel it just like you did. We can't deny other addicts their pain, but we can carry the message of hope that was given to us by fellow addicts in recovery. We share the principles of recovery as they've worked in our lives. God helps us as we help each other. It is critical. Life takes on a new meaning, a new joy, and a quality of being and feeling worthwhile. Self-respect is about having self-worth. We know we are somebody. We know we have value. And if you are questioning that right now, get with another person. There's nothing like getting some feedback. Do you see, ask whoever you're in here with, do you see any positive qualities that I have? Because I feel like I'm a court low on all of them. Can you tell me what you see in me? And get some feedback from somebody else before you start deciding that you're, worthless and you're just going to be spinning through the doors of places like this. Because that is not true. And sometimes we have to ask each other to help us see our self-worth. And after you do that a while, the book says, we become spiritually refreshed and are glad to be alive. One aspect of our spiritual awakening that comes through the new understanding of our higher power that we develop by sharing another addict's recovery. Yes, we are a vision of hope. We are examples of the program working. The joy that we have in living clean is an attraction to the addict who still suffers. Okay, so what was my journey of finding self-respect and self-dignity like? I told you I grew up lying. Told you I grew up in a dysfunctional family. I knew before I went to my first meeting that I lacked self-worth. And what are some of the examples that I found in my life to know that I had no self-worth? So I was a working addict. I went to work every day. I had kind of a job that sort of allowed my addiction to keep moving. I didn't have to punch a clock right when I came in. I was working in DC up on Capitol Hill, and you could kind of say you were going to Capitol Hill to attend a hearing while you were sleeping it off or still using from the night before. So I had a job that supported my addiction, unfortunately, literally, financially, and the time that I could spend using. One of the things, even though I went to work every day, I did not take care of my personal hygiene. It's a big sign of lack of self-worth. Like, I was one of those girls that would go and buy designer clothes and put it on a dirty body. Face full of makeup when I hadn't showered for 3 days. So that was one of the things that was a real concrete example of me that I lacked self-worth, because I was not dealing with the basics. One of the other things was this chronic lying. If I respected who and what I was, why did I need to keep glamorizing it or making myself more than I was? And half the time, people would know you were lying. It wasn't just lies of convenience, like, oh, well, I slept late because my alarm clock broke, or whatever we used to say back in the day. Everyone knows. Like, do you think you're really, coming up with anybody? So I wasn't dealing with my personal hygiene. I had no relationship with the truth. And I constantly was ducking my family. Another sign. To this day, if I don't return my sister's call within 3 days, she'll still ask me, 26 years clean, you using? Why are you ducking me? Because I constantly ducked anyone who I thought would not approve of my lifestyle. Because like a lot of us, you can kind of keep it moving and look like you're functioning in the world. But after a while, that addiction will take a toll on you. And you look like crap. You're acting bad. You're showing up late. You always seem to have all these things that happen to me. Oh, I got my wallet stolen. I got my purse stolen. My car got broken into. Now, I would never take any personal responsibility for that, of course. But these were some of the things that I knew, even before I got fully in recovery, something was wrong with my relationship with myself. I did not have one, and the one that I had was very, very poor. And so one of the things I did to get self-respect early on, imagine this, took a shower every day. How about that? Like, not rocket science, but it was not something that was on my agenda. I had no routine. My routine was about doing enough work to get that paycheck so I could use with it and then some, and then just getting and finding and using ways and means while pretending like I was working. And I did work some, but I didn't give them an honest 2 weeks of work every 2 weeks when I got paid. And so one of the things that people in recovery early on taught me, get a routine. I just needed a routine. Addicts don't like, as much as we appear to be chasing chaos, we actually do much better when we have a set routine. When we get up around the same time, when we check out at night around the same time, doesn't have to be, punch clock and perfect, but our clock punching perfect. So I began to get a routine that included hygiene first thing in the morning. The other thing that gave me some self-worth was getting, believe it or not, some exercise. And I'm not talking about later on, I ran a marathon and stuff like that. But at first it was just like, get up and move. So you can see it's a routine is starting to come here. I'd get up in the morning. If I didn't want a lot of my sponsor, I had to read the Just for Today because she'd ask me about it every day. I had to call my sponsor every day, which I hated, but I did anyways. And so I got a routine, and that routine had me literally looking in the mirror because I didn't realize it, but I was not looking in the mirror at all. I was just throwing on clothes and out the door. And that included not brushing teeth, the whole thing. And so a little routine began to give me some self-respect. And back in the day, I got clean in the late 80s in DC, and people used to treat people in meetings a lot differently. It was, Carol, sit down, shut the F up. If we want to know how to use, we'll call on you. Take the cotton out of your ears, put it in your mouth, and listen. God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Please use them according to the directions. Listen twice as much as you talk, because I love to hear the sound of my own voice. And, when I first came to NA, I used to think I had to convince all of y'all I was bad enough to be here, right? So I'd tell these wild using stories. Frankly, my use in life was bad enough. I did not need to exaggerate it. I already told you I was crawling around on the floor like a dog and living in my closet. I didn't really, letting people with lice stay up in my place, and my apartment basically turned to a place where people dealt drugs out of. So I wasn't exactly like this, high bottom addict. I wasn't. I just maintained a job. And I had a family that bought me out of my legal problems. And I will say that to you honestly. One of the reasons why I like to come here is because of basically my family's socioeconomic status. They could buy me attorneys to get me out of the trouble that kept you here for a long time. I did my little weekends in jail as a 16-year-old and, first offenders program and stuff like that, but I never did any meaningful time. And somehow I thought that meant y'all wouldn't like me, that I wasn't bad enough, and so I would, tell these stories and, make it seem like I used more than I did. And I had a sponsor that knew me better than I knew myself. And she'd be like, sometimes in a group, if we're out after the meeting, and back then everybody was smoking, they still are, but they would smoke in the meeting too. But she'd say, is that true, Carol? Is that really true? In front of a group of people. She would embarrass me that I was exaggerating. Is that really true? And then I'd be like totally embarrassed, not knowing what to say. And I would hang my head. And I knew quickly, if you're going to keep lying, you better not do it in front of your sponsor, because she's going to humiliate you. And she will ask you this stuff in front of other people. And so that helped cure me of it. The other thing that gave me self-worth, believe it or not, early in recovery, and I really like clothes with pockets. And I came early on into that because in order not to steal, my sponsor would say, keep your hands in your pockets. If you've got to go in the store, you keep those hands right in your pocket. And those little lipsticks and all this dumb stuff you're stealing anyways that you don't need. Like, just keep your hands in your pockets and all that kind of practical advice early on. Imagine that. I didn't get caught shoplifting. And she's like, I prefer that you stay out of there, but because you have to go buy a pack of cigarettes every day, you keep those hands in your pocket until you're checking out. And you tell, I lived in a recovery house, you tell the other girls in the house that you have a problem with putting your hands on other people's stuff. And I was like, well, if I tell them that, they're going to think I'm stealing from them. Well, too bad. This will be taking an insurance policy out on the fact that you don't want to put your hands on other people's stuff, because I used to do that too. If you were prettier than me, I might help myself to your sweater and then help you look for it. I mean, so not stealing, practicing good hygiene, and having a schedule are three things that I will tell you for this addict began to give me some self-worth and some self-respect. The other thing that I had to do was start dealing with all the things I had done that had gave me shame. And, I used to think a lot of times, well, and I said this to my sponsor one time. It was the first and last time I ever said this. Well, I mean, at least I didn't prostitute. And she's like, whoa, 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 pump the brakes here. Let me go back through this 4-step here. So when you're going to those bars and you're getting all those guys to give you, buy you stuff and give you stuff that you can go in the bathroom and use. This was still when I was like pretended like I was a party girl and not like that lonely, desperate addict in my apartment by myself, crawling, smoking detergent or whatever off my floor. She said, oh, you were a prostitute, all right. You just didn't have the sense to charge for it. You were giving it away for free because I lacked self-respect. I lacked self-worth. And I thought that if they want to get with me, they must love me. Because I was a love junkie too. I had that mama that starved me of that love. And boy, I was, that whole thing about looking for love in all the wrong places. Honey, that was me all day long. I would fly like a moth to a flame of the worst behaving, worst acting, devil be there bad boy that you could possibly find. And, and people would be like, what are you doing with him? You're like this lobbyist in Washington. Like, why are you dragging these guys with like marks all over them? And girl, I thought I could dress them up like they were my paper dolls and I was going to fix them up. Y'all probably know what paper dolls were, but back in the day, we would have these things you could put outfits on and stuff. Well, I would act like this poor guy is my paper doll man. And I would think, well, I've got a work event that I need to bring a +1 to. So you'll do. So we're going to go to Macy's and we're going to just cover up all those tats and get you a haircut. Now, do you think for a minute, this is how self-centered I was. I thought he would say, well, thank you. God, Carol, that was so nice. You got me this nice outfit. Now, meanwhile, did I ask him if he wanted to go? No. It was all about me. Did I ask him if he wanted me to buy him preppy looking clothes? No, I never asked. Did I realize that it was sending him the signal that I wasn't okay with exactly who and what he was as he was that minute? Had no idea. It was all about me. And I thought that if I had a man on my arm, no matter how beat to death with dressed up clothes he was, that must meant, well, a guy likes me, so I must be okay. And having that man like or love me was like air for me. I had to have it in order to function. And, it didn't matter that like, well, you just went to the White House today for a meeting. It didn't matter that like you were the aunt to a new baby. It didn't matter that like you helped get this bill passed that helped people with addiction and mental illness be able to access healthcare benefits. None of that mattered. Just had to have me a man. It was an obsession. And I would put anything and everything. And then I would start bringing these people on family vacations. And to say my husband knows, but to say that I was the black sheep daughter was sort of an understatement, right? I mean, it's really bad when your mom in your Christmas stocking puts a refrigerator magnet of a black sheep in your stocking, right? Like, it was official. Everyone knew. And so they were all pretty conservative. People who stayed up using all through the night and came out onto the beach with, beers at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. because we all get sunburned as hell and have to go out early in the morning or late in the afternoon. We can't do that midday sun, or we'd all walk around like little lobsters. And they were like, he can't drink around our little babies, Carol, at 8 in the morning. I know it's the beach, but like, we're not doing this. And he gets weirder and weirder as he gets drunker and drunker. Like, eventually it was going to be like, it's got to be it's him and you, or we're leaving. Like, we're not putting up with this. So then I'd have to go through this drama of packing poor paper doll man in the car and send him on his way. And these kinds of things, I was getting my self-worth from thinking that because I had a man, I must be worth something. So that issue, I started having self-worth about me. So I took care of myself, my hygiene. I had a routine. I did certain things. I went to a meeting after work. I had to replace all those things that I had been done because I was this party girl by day and then dope fiend by night. So I would go to the bars and all that, and then pick up tabs for people that I was supposed to entertain for my job. And then at 9 o'clock, I'd go home and put all my black clothes on and be dope fiend. So, I was still stuck. I had my routine. I had some self-respect. And I was old enough now to realize that it's not cool for a woman's self-worth to depend on having a man, right? Like, my program must not be that good if I need a guy to make me feel whole. Something is off. So I started keeping secrets about it, right? But you can't keep a secret. I mean, like, every meeting I went to, my head would be like this. I could barely hear a message because I'm looking for Mr. Right. Now, if you've ever thought about the idea of looking for Mr. or Mrs. Right in a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, I mean, it's got to kind of make you laugh, right? Like, wouldn't be the first place I'd send somebody, but I wouldn't send them to a bar either, and people do it all the time. But I was always looking for a man, looking. And as I got into my mid-30s, I was like, this isn't cool. I'm supposed to be this accomplished businesswoman, but still I'm constantly looking for a man. And that kind of behavior is just as toxic for me as drug use is, believe it or not. Like, if you think that chasing relationships obsessively, being jealous, being demanding, needing to know where your man is all the time, if they look at another woman like you are harsh, this is not good behavior. And I knew it. So I was all being like real, like furtive and underground about it. And I'm like, damn it, here I go again. I'm keeping these secrets about this behavior. And I like go through this whole thing with my sponsor about all this obsessive stuff I've done with a man. And I'm talking about if they dump me. I mean, there's some people that call people that do this kind of stuff, crazy, or I could probably come up with a politically correct word. But I would key your car if you dump me. I would make your new girlfriend's life a living hell. I got so bad that I actually burned down the garage. This guy told me, I said, we've been together for 3 years. Like, we should move in together. And he's like, move in together with you? You're not the marrying type. I mean, like, Carol, come on. What's Irish and stays out all night? Patio furniture and Carol McDaid. Like, you're not the bring home to my mom kind of person. Now, all of this was shocking to me. I thought for sure that we were like going to ride off into the sunset. And he had asked me shortly after this, like, I'd pretended like, oh, okay, no big deal. But meanwhile, I'm seething inside, like, who is he to reject me and all this stuff? Like, he doesn't know what he's got. He was, also a drug dealer, of course. And his parents had asked if I could dog sit while they were away on a family vacation, to which I was not invited. And I said, oh, I'd be happy to dog sit for your animals. I took the animals out, put them in our car where they'd be safe, poured gasoline all over their fancy ass garage, and torched that sucker. I mean, and I sat back and I watched it burn with a big old smile on my face, all that roaring fire. And this is out in a really expensive, part of outside of Washington, D.C., where the houses are like miles apart. And I thought, nobody's going to see me. Fuck it if they do. And I got in my little cars, took the dogs back to my apartment, went back. Obviously, somebody had called the people when it was all safe. I took the dogs back. And, as you can imagine, I caught an arson charge behind that. They figured out exactly what had happened. And they figured out why I did it. And, again, family attorney gets trotted out. He was used to dealing with my father and then just generationally passed down to dealing with all of my drama and legal trauma. And so I tell you this story to let you know that drugs alone are not the only thing that will get you locked up in a place like this. That if you obsessively put having a relationship in front of your personal recovery, it can kill you. It can literally kill you. You could end up, I chased guys with knives. Like, I was sick. I was one of those crazy ladies that if you rejected me, I was going to make you feel it. And when I got so I tell all this stuff to my sponsor, and she's like, honey, all you have to do is watch you in the rooms or at a convention. This isn't a secret that you're obsessed with guys and attention from guys. And it's nothing to be ashamed about, but we do have to deal with it. And I would recommend you get some outside help, which I did, thankfully. I needed every bit of it and then some. And I don't have problems with jealousy or revenge today, but I still am not immune from having sick thoughts up here. And it's not just about like male female stuff. We've recently gone through some changes, in our family and changes at the organization we helped found, and it all hadn't gone according to Carol's plan, boo-hoo. And I have spent more time than I don't like to admit to y'all thinking about, well, I'll show this one, and I'm very patient. I'll wait 5 years, and then I'll drop this bombshell, 26 years clean, I'm still, now the good news is that what 26 years clean buys you is the time to think before you act, that I did not have when I threw that match, burning up that garage. But I still have to check myself. I still have to go to therapy sometimes when crazy seems to be winning over the common sense Carol. And I got no shame about it. And I know what my issues are. And Marshall's right. You might do 1, 4th, or 5th step, which is, the step where you do a moral inventory and tell all that truth to a sponsor or someone you select to do that with. And I've done a lot of them over the years. I'm in the middle of doing another one right now, and it's right square on this, Carol's notion of she needs to exact revenge on people that do things that she doesn't like or do things that she doesn't like that are being done to her husband. Now, meanwhile, has my husband asked me to exact revenge on anyone? No, just the opposite. Did I ask him if he would like me to, exact one of my clever schemes like I used to do in Washington to get bills passed? No, he did not. In fact, he has said, shit happens, it's all going to be fine, blah, blah, blah. And I call this part of me Sybil. And then Sybil's back, okay, let's pretend like you're all fine with that with John. But the scheme, Sybil's still scheming. So, in fact, I have to talk to my sponsor. She says, don't call with pleasantries. Let's get right to it. How are you dealing with this, that, and the other? And we go right into it so that there's no, pretend Carol is like trying to act like I'm all this in a bag of chips and I'm together and I've let it go. Oh, I haven't let it go. I have not let it go. But that doesn't mean I've got to train wreck my life over it or the lives of, my husband, to whom are being more affected than mine. But you wouldn't think that. Because, and I make jokes about being a tiger wife and a tiger stepmom. And I am like, you want to mess with me? Fine. But you start messing with my family, we got problems. We got problems. And I can solve problems in a very mean way. And I know that about myself. So what I've been doing a lot lately is doing a lot of nothing. Just don't act. Don't act. Don't speak. Don't chase people down. Like there'd be a part of me that used to want to go to a meeting for somebody that I had a resentment toward, so I could just sit there and grind on them at the meeting. I mean, like, who do you think is being hurt by that behavior? Me. You think the person, they don't even know I resent them, right? And I'm just like, it's like, drinking poison, expecting the other person to die, and the only person that's full of poison is me, right? So one of the ways that I deal with maintaining self-respect and dignity right now is not doing anything. And there was an old saying back in the day, if you can't say something nice about somebody, don't say anything at all. I've been doing a lot of this, just like Marshall. Because, other people will try to engage you in this stuff. Well, you've got to be mad at so-and-so for doing such and such. Yeah. And I'm like, no. I just have to walk away. Because the first thing I want to do, misery loves company, right? Lasso them into all of my bullshit. And then I thought about, no, don't tell anybody, because that may ruin it when it finally comes. When I drop my fantastic bomb in the middle of this person's life, I don't want anybody to know about it. So we got to keep our mouth shut. So then I got to go back and tell my sponsor, I'm keeping secrets about this, because when people ask me how I'm doing, I go, oh, fine, just fine. You know what fine means, right? Thank you. Okay, so insecure, neurotic, and emotional. We'll leave the effed up part. I think everybody can figure that out. So one of the other things that I have done, so I'm tracking this. Y'all track with me now. We deal with our hygiene. We get a routine. We do spiritual stuff to set ourselves on the right course every day, including now we have toxic Sybil trying to wrestle the steering wheel of my life away from me. So I definitely have to do that now. So I have my schedule. If you have committed to do a job, you give those people their 8 hours a day that they've hired you for. You do the right thing, even when no one is looking, right? That gave me a lot of self-respect, because I used to be one of these people who'd be like, yeah, I'd go and help you. And how are you doing? And to kind of give you a ride to a meeting. Also, you could go back and say, God, that Carol, she is really nice. She is really so helpful. Like I wanted an atta girl for helping you, instead of realizing that I get 10 times more benefit helping you than you do probably. Yeah, you might have needed a ride to a meeting, but I needed to listen to a newcomer so I could get my head off of whatever toxic waste dump revenge plan I've got going on here. You have just relieved me of the insanity of my own negative self-talk. And so helping others became an incredibly important way to get self-respect and dignity for me and to keep it. And one of the things that I got the most amount of respect for myself was, and I know this may sound crazy to a lot of people, but staying celibate for 6 months. I was told that I could not be in a relationship or date a guy or have sex for 6 months by my sponsor. And she said, and if that means you can't help yourself, then you just need to stay home. When everybody else is going out after the meeting, if getting in so-and-so's car, you and me both know is going to lead to spending the night, don't go. Don't go. And just like Marshall said, if you need to tell a white lie to get out of it, You got a perfect one, right? It's my period. It's this, it's that. I've got family coming in and out of town. I was a born liar. Like I can come up with a lie for the right reason, you know? And I don't recommend telling a bunch of social lies, but if it's between you and using and losing your abstinence, and for me, this chasing guys was just as important as me stop using drugs. I just had to stop it. It could not be the third leg of my stool like it had been. It was one of the things holding me up. And I had to learn that my higher power and I were enough. We could hold ourselves up, you know? And so when I did that, I realized I did not need to have a man to stay afloat. Like I was okay. Yeah, was I bored some? Did I want oh baby some? Yeah, sure, I did. But I did without it, and I learned that you are just okay. And I went to a couple of dinner parties by myself. You know, I went on vacations by myself. I went to a movie by myself. And you know what? I made pretty good company. I was okay with it. You know, once I got over the what you thought about it, people say like, oh, you went out to dinner by yourself? And I was like, yeah, it was great. You know, the maitre d' or the hostess was really great to me, and they made it easy. And they're like, you went by yourself? And it would be like somebody's putting a knife through my heart, like there's something wrong with doing stuff by yourself. There's nothing wrong with doing stuff by yourself. It's really cool. It's very relaxing and very freeing. So that was another way I built self-respect, of realizing that I did not have to be in a relationship to be happy. I did not have to be in a relationship to have people respect me. And I did want other people's respect, but I didn't need a man or a relationship to get that. And then later on in my recovery, I was probably, 5-6 years clean. A guy that I had been seeing after I'd had my period of abstinence dumped me. Okay. And like I told you, I don't do rejection well, right? And I ended up relapsing over it. And so with 5 years and like 10 months, I relapsed. That is when I met that guy in the back. We were at a convention together in South Carolina. I met him 1 year. I was still clean, but boy, I was hanging on by a thread, and I was keeping it a big fat secret. I had decided that I was never going to be able to find a man in NA. So I started dating people outside the rooms. I was dating all these lawyers and lobbyists from Washington. There are 8 women to every 1 man in Washington. So cheating on your woman is pretty, frequent, right? And it was just like, they would lie, they cheat on you, they're sleeping with 3 women at once. And then, you're working in politics, so you have to go to them and ask them to do something for you. Like, it was just a mess, right? So I decided that, staying clean hadn't worked because I hadn't gotten in a successful relationship. And by then, recovery had been very good to me. Believe it or not, once you stop using all the time, I was much better at my job. I was rewarded financially for getting it done. Meanwhile, I'm single. A lot of other people, while this thing in their late 30s, are still, they got families, wives, husbands, lives, kids, and not me. McDaid is grinding it out. When all you're home with your family, I'm here thinking of another way to get a bill passed. I'm here thinking of making one more call to get a client to hire me. And, you're rewarded by that. But other people if I stayed here and worked all night like Carol does, I might get all these new clients too. But, and the other thing I did then is I started telling the truth about my addiction and my recovery. And lo and behold, and started telling the truth about who and what I was. Because I had this very thick Southern accent, and a lot of people in Washington don't, right? And there's this whole thing that Southern women are dumb, right? So I would sit in front of my bathroom mirror and try to enunciate my Southern accent away so that somehow you thought I was smarter, maybe? I don't know. I would wear certain business women's clothes and thinking that if I looked the part, you would think of hiring me. And I was at the point where I wasn't just working for somebody else. I had to bring in my own business in the door. So I'm really basically reading books and stuff on how to become, what does a businesswoman act and look like? And then I was like replicating it down to the shoes and hose and all of this. And it was all about the outside, right? And being very formal and very professional and very, I developed this handshake that would, for most women, would break your hand because that's what men did. They shook hands hard, right? So once I realized that when I was myself, I was actually more successful at business than if I faked some play a game of some executive female that like literally that I was in a book. It wasn't real life. And I started bringing my little quirky, zany, I didn't tell stories about burning people's garage down, obviously, or stealing, but I was myself. I didn't try to, and I realized that my Southern accent was actually kind of a good thing. Because if a lot of the men that I had to try to get to do stuff or not do stuff were older white guys, and the more they thought I was stupid, the more I could kind of run circles around them. So that worked out pretty well because okay, I realize if they think I'm dumb, I'm going to give them something to rethink that over. And so I began to embrace my whole and real self. I wasn't the fake meister version of some businesswoman. And as a result of that, and I started talking about that I was a person with a disease of addiction and that I was in recovery. And back then in the 80s and early 90s, when people talked about it, is not like today where you can talk about it openly. People would start whispering, "Oh, were you one of those addicts?" Like it was like this whole big whispering thing. And nobody talked about it. And my boss at the time, I started developing business in this addiction and mental illness space. So like Betty Ford or Hazel and these big rehabs and stuff. I had been through a lot of them. So they thought it was pretty cool that I could talk firsthand about, hey, this chick lobbyist has actually been through our facility and she can talk about it firsthand. And the owner of my firm at the time was like, if you want to talk about that with your clients for addiction, but the rest of the time, like, don't talk about your addiction in front of anyone else. It was like this big secret, is this mark of shame. And when I realized, I felt better about myself when I could tell people that I struggled with addiction. I'm now in recovery, and it's changed my life. And it should change. We need to pass legislation to help change other people's lives, because you shouldn't have to be rich to go to treatment. Because back then it was mostly residential inpatient rehabs. It's not all these like outpatient and office-based opioid detox. Like none of that was around then. And people, they were buying what I was selling. They realized, and especially some of the employers who realized if they took a look at all the benefits claims of an employee, if they saw this person was going to the emergency room like every couple of months, the cost of having you on their health plan was just skyrocketing. And it turned out that if you had untreated addiction, your family members' healthcare costs too. Now make sure you hear what I'm saying here. Not just your healthcare costs as the using addict, your family members around you were utilizing more health and mental health benefits dealing with us. It was running their healthcare cost up for their employers. So employers started realizing we better do something about addiction and mental illness because it's making the country go broke, right? When you think about lost productivity and you think about increased healthcare costs and all the emergency room and the hospitalizations and the law enforcement costs and the child welfare system being overrun with people who couldn't care for their kids. When you start adding it up, it's a big, big number. So all of a sudden it became more politically correct to address the addiction issue as a healthcare issue and not just as a lock them up and throw away the key issue. And I happened to, higher power totally here. It's not like I sat down and well, I'm going to plan my life to become a lobbyist and help people with addiction and mental health benefits. I mean, people, I would have told you, you are flat nuts if you thought that was what I was going to end up doing for a career. But that's exactly where my recovery led me. And it was this journey of finding myself along the way that was so important, and that I can stand here in front of you and tell you very sick and sad stories about myself, because it's all incorporated into who and what I am. One of the other things that I started doing, once I got clean again, John and I were dating. We ended up moving together here, but I had to keep going back and forth to Washington because this is all I'd ever done. And it's not like you can just walk down to the Capitol in Richmond and say, hey, I'm a DC lobbyist, aren't I all that? And like, I know no one, I know nothing about the process. I don't know these members that are in our General Assembly or Senate. Like, so what? You're a DC lobbyist. In fact, they hate you more because they think you're better than them. And so I couldn't get a job here. I literally graduated from college and started right into doing this work, either legal or lobbying work. And it's all I ever knew. And if I took a job here, it was like 50% less pay. So I was like, fine, I don't have any kids. John had a daughter. And so I moved back and forth every week. I'd go to Richmond. I'd stay in DC like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then I'd come back home. And I learned that way that, you know, how to stand tall and be married and do the right thing even when no one was looking. I remember when I got my first little apartment in DC, I made sure I got a single bed. My sister's like, why'd you get that puny ass single bed? And I was like, I don't want to be tempted, man. I am going to walk tall. I'm not going to be like all these guys that are coming in from out of town. They've got their little, you know, Candy and whatever else all their names are, Enchantment, you know, coming up to their apartments. Like, I'm not doing any of that shit, because if I do, what happens? I'll end up using over it. I knew that if I was not going to be faithful, I was going to end up high as gas. So I was very, pretty Spartan. You know, my place was Spartan. My behavior was right on the money. I was not cheating on anybody, and I wasn't going to cheat on myself, and I sure wasn't going to get high over it. Just, there was no man that was that important to me anymore. It just wasn't. And I really eased into the married lifestyle for somebody that had been so crazy about attention from males. My higher power, therapy I got, my husband, I became a really devoted and faithful wife. And I have been that way my entire marriage. And I know a lot of people are like that, but you know, in this world, there's a lot of like wink, wink, nod, nod about that stuff. I mean, I am stand up and I am a faithful wife. I may not be the best wife, and it's taken me 25 years to learn how to bake, but not a great baker. A lot of fallen disaster zone thing. And, but I have been a good wife, a faithful wife, a loyal, probably to a fault wife. And I have self-respect from that. I don't, you know, run around in church and brag about it, but I'm saying it to you because how we behave is how we view ourselves. And I can tell you, if you can't find self-respect and dignity, in my experience, I will use again. I have got to get that. And again, no matter how many times you're arrested, you got self-respect, nobody can take that from you. You got self-worth because you know you stood up and you did the right thing and you paid child support or whatever the right thing is to you. No one can take that. And all it can do, if you build it, I think of it as being like a savings account. And you pop in, like I did, good behavior about self-care, good behavior about a little exercise, get the old body moving a little bit, good self-care about showing up to work on time, not coming up with the excuse of the day routine about why you're late, staying until the job is done, answering the phone for my sponsees, even when I'm like, oh, I know what I'm going to hear. Complain, 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 complain. And I have cured that. A lot of people that used to do that, I'll say, oh, stop. Give me your gratitude list. 3 things you're grateful for right now. Before you, well, but. Nope. No but. And if you're not prepared to do that today, we can hang up. And when you're prepared to give me a gratitude list before the complaints, happy to talk to you. And that works pretty well. Does work pretty well. We've gotten some really good habits from people. And at first they start trying to say the same thing over and over. I'm like, nope, you said that on Tuesday. Let's give me some new ones. So developing relationships with sponsees where I am accountable and I can be counted on. And being the same way with my sponsor. I'm not thrilled about having to call her all the time, but I call her anyways because she has demanded that of me. And I need it, especially right now when Sybil's trying to grab the wheel and send me off on some crazy revenge thing, right? And I think the other thing that has given me self-respect and self-worth, and I hope that you can see that I carry myself with dignity. I'm not ashamed of who I am today. Have I done some weird ass stuff? Absolutely. But am I a good person and I've helped a lot of people? You bet I have. You bet I have. And I have done that intentionally. I didn't do it because I was following my husband around. No, we spent a lot of our marriage apart, because I was working somewhere else and I was working hard at it. But he was sort of like already Mr. Recovery when I met him. And I was pretty active in DC too. But I came here and helped people in my own way. At first, before we started McShin, people would stay at our house. And we brought them in because I felt kind of guilty. I'm off saving the world and trying to pass all these bills and stuff to help people nationally. But I'm doing nothing for recovery other than sponsoring women in my own backyard. And where we lived in Hanover County at the time, when we started McShin in 2004, they had a 23-day waiting list for any kind of help for addiction, not just inpatient, outpatient, counseling, medication, 23-day waiting list. Now, if you're an addict like me, and this was when heroin was still really big, you're dead by then. You can't come back in come back in 23 days. And then we'll give you an assessment and then come back in another month for actually getting the help. So we started bringing people to our house, and it started off casually enough, right? Yeah, you sleep on the couch, and then it got to the point where we had 3 or 4 sofas, and there were all these little. Back in the day, we called them DOP kits. It's like where men put their cosmetics or their toothbrush or whatever they use to their hair stuff or whatever in a little case. And there'd be one of those under every couch. I'd come home, John had them stashed with toothbrush, toothpaste, shaving cream under every couch. And, like I said, we had a daughter and she was starting to grow up. And I think her mom was starting to, now who's staying at your house? Yeah, all the jail guys are at our house. We have such fun. And she'd be like, oh, okay, interesting. I'm sure she and John had some interesting conversations about that. But after a while, we were running out of sofas. People were like, we had a near-death thing in our driveway. Like there were some, people with a disease of addiction can die on you real quick, and we just didn't want that in our home. And, or we didn't want to have people and us not have the appropriate level of help that we could help them. This was before, naloxone was around, but it was really only for, in ambulances and stuff like that. And I feel like that through helping other people that we have at the level we have is why we've been given such a blessed life. And I do get self-respect and dignity about that. We could have been going to Europe every summer for a vacation instead of starting McShin. There's a lot of different stuff we could have done, but we know that the power that through helping others, you help yourself. And I get self-respect and dignity. And it's really important for somebody with childhood trauma who spent her life feeling dirty and ashamed over stuff that happened to her that was not her fault, that you have a capacity to shake that off and hold your head high, and recovery will give you that gift just like it did me. I promise you. It is not magical. Like, you get a routine, you start taking care of yourself, you start feeling about yourself. It opens the door to recovery. You start listening to stuff you might not have been willing to a year ago. Like, this stuff will work for you if you allow it. And I just want you to know, I just wanted to share with you, and I'm going to wrap it up, exactly how I went about getting some self-respect and dignity about, because when I walked in here, I had 0. And yeah, I have moments of self-esteem. You know, some young girl will walk by and I'll see somebody looking at her and I'll think, God, I'm so old or whatever. But by and large, I feel pretty good about who and what I am. And that is a miracle and a gift of recovery. So I'm happy to stop here. I don't know, John, if I can take questions or. Yeah, feel free to. I know. But I'm not, if I've talked this long, I'm going to take questions if anybody has any about issues that you have with dignity or self-respect or just anything affecting your recovery or something that you wished you could ask someone and you haven't. I saw you nod your head a lot.
Okay, Carol, you put me on the spot.
I did, because I was connecting with you. This isn't a punishment, but I felt like you.
I guess, how did you dig so deep and get so honest? Like, what was the breaking point for you? What was the rock bottom that, I guess, just made you just dig so deep to get that honest? And how did you finally get to the point of being honest with John, like your partner?
He had to catch me red-handed.
Because it's hard to be honest with the man, especially somebody you're in a relationship with.
Oh, yeah.
To let them in on who exactly you are.
No, I was still playing games and hiding and trying to be the best version of myself. Yeah. And I would say this has been a process. It's not like I got struck ready. I mean, one of the ways I first got help was I had one of those old-timey interventions, you know, where, like, you know, they have suitcases packed and they say you can go to this you can go to a warm rehab or you can go to a place in cold weather and we've packed your bags. But if you don't go, you're losing your job. And my job was everything. So that was the first way the door cracked open, was because if you don't go to rehab, you're going to lose your job. And my job was everything. It defined me. And so I really just went to keep that job. But about 3 weeks in, which was good because in 4 weeks I was supposed to be going home, I started thinking, you know, maybe this is the drugs and the alcohol. I literally thought it was everyone else. You know, they're uptight, or, you know, well, they let all the old senators, they all get plastered all the time. Why can't I? Like, I had an excuse and a reason that it was everybody else's fault. And I realized that, you know, no, Carol, you were like getting your game face on when you were 16 years old before you went out with people. You had to like start piling it on before you ever left the house. Like, something was weird about the way you used, and it was. And I had inherited that generational curse of addiction, like 7 generations in my Irish family. So it didn't happen all at once. But one of the ways I started opening up was developing a trusting relationship with a sponsor. The other way was John's level of honesty is really pretty amazing. Like, he's got plenty of flaws, but lying has never been one of them. And he just encouraged me to say what was going on. And I trusted him by that point because he helped me. He helped save my life when I was relapsing. And I just didn't think, you know, I'm this big supposed expert on addiction in my job. But meanwhile, I'm like floundering personally. And I've made this, like, I'm this face and voice of recovery in Washington while I'm using. And that is such torture and so shame making that I think I had just hit that bottom and I was ready to release who this was. And then I think, you know, sponsors and 4th and 5th steps have really helped me get, but it was not immediate. I did not dig that deep. I'd say by the time I had about 7 or 8 years, most of my stuff was right out there on the table. But you hear me, 7 or 8 years, not overnight. But you work with what you got, right? But think about it this way. If somebody had told me that this magical self-esteem everybody keeps talking about, that I could get it through just telling the truth, like I might have quit lying a lot earlier. I didn't realize that that was one of the byproducts of telling the truth, as you get self-respect, self-esteem, and self-worth and dignity. Like it didn't compute to me, but this is the story I have put together after the fact, that that's how I got it, was through getting a routine, getting some cleanliness happening in my life, and helping others, getting my addiction to men dealt with, and then helping others truthfully. Not telling you the story that I think you want to hear out of the back of the basic text and at the Narcotics Anonymous text. I'm going to tell you Carol's story just like it is. Even though I didn't do any big jail time, and I didn't lose everything, but it was bad enough. And I just needed to begin that process. And any of you can start anywhere you are. And if you're like me, if you start seeing good results from doing something, you're likely to keep doing it. And I began to see good benefits from telling the truth and being myself. And when I stopped being a fake business lady and was just myself and saw like my bank account was higher, okay, that was real practical for me, that me being myself has a concrete payoff in my life, literally. So just give it a chance. But you know, the other thing is we can't be trustworthy with people until they've earned it. You don't go on a first date with a guy and go, well, I used to shoot dope in my neck, and it's not first date material, right? So we get honest with people as they have proven themselves to be a safe and loving and caring and trustworthy person. That's who we get. And for me, that first person was a sponsor. I hope that helps. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Barbara, you got something to say?
I'm just going to say, when do I know when Sybil comes out?
Oh, you'll know.
I found that Sybil back, man.
You'll know.
I got to cut the dogs loose now. They may burn up.
Love you guys.
Give her a hand. Come on. Yeah. We ran the clock out, man.
Yeah. Hey, one takeaway. I know a lot of people in this program, a lot of people that are clean, whatever program they're in, and nobody has done it perfectly. This is not a perfect program.
Yeah, definitely not.
Program of progress.
Progress, not perfection.
And the little saying is, you know, if you get involved in it, you know, you'll be better off than you were before. I love it.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Thank you, Kyle.
We'll see y'all in 2 weeks. Y'all been good. Thank you.
All right. See y'all in 2 weeks.
Deep dive. That was a good one.
Hey, John, I'll see you tomorrow at 10 o'clock.
11 o'clock.
No, I won't be there at 10.
Keep moving that.
Hey.
50-something.
Hey, John, I've been in the
63.
I've been in the mirror. Turn.
You know what I did today?
What? You did it? Yeah. Yeah, it was.
I played with 2 y'all.